All right. It's NFL schedule release week. NFL schedule comes out on Wednesday, although we're going to get leaks. We're already getting leaks in the lead up to it. But we'll kick off the week with this edition of the Black and Gold Breakdown on the channel. Appreciate everybody for tuning in as you always do. If you're clicking on the thumbnail or if you're watching on Twitter, focus today going to be on Justin Fields, a former coach of his from Chicago, really just really leaning in on some bashing of him in an article written by the great Tyler Dunn, friend of the channel. Tyler Dunn was just on an episode of the Pump Fake a couple weeks ago, and he's doing a really good series on the Bears and their dysfunction, and trying to get back on track. You should go read it over at golongtd.com. He also did a really good series last season on the Buffalo Bills and the Sean McDermott problem. I think it was a 4-part series on Go Long. So go read all of Tyler Dunn's work, man. He does terrific work. And this comes from his latest piece again on the Chicago Bears in a series that he's working on, where a former coach of Justin Fields in Chicago really just laid in on him when it comes to just his overall thoughts on him. The former coach, who remained anonymous, said, "When you watch him, watch his eyes. He tries to see the whole thing and doesn't see anything. His eyes are all over the place, and it's just really hard to watch. It's just bad football." Coach also added that if the single wing was still a thing, he'd be really good at that. So just really leaning into just the bashing of Justin Fields there. And maybe bashing is a little bit harsh of a word, but you know, talking about Justin Fields, the biggest thing with him, that is the biggest issue that most people have, is his ability to process the field and to make decisions. It's why he's one of the reasons why he's taken a lot of sacks over the past few years, is because of his decision making, and maybe taking a little bit long to do so. And that's been one of the biggest things that people have really come back to when talking about Fields. So, and again, his former coach saying, watch his eyes. He tries to see everything at once. And again, maybe that's a fair criticism, where Fields tries to, see everything all at once and tries to do too much. He's not a perfect quarterback, obviously. If he was, the Bears wouldn't have looked to move on from him and draft Caleb Williams. I will say this though about Justin Fields. He wasn't in a great situation, especially in the first 2 years of his career with the Bears, where the offensive line wasn't great, especially in his rookie year. And also, look at who he was throwing to. I know that DJ Moore got there last year, but even outside of DJ Moore, throughout his time there, it's been a lot of Velus Jones and Equanimous St. Brown and Dante Pettis. Like, this isn't a who's who of receiving talent that Justin Fields had. And not to mention that Luke Getsy, for as much crap as Steelers fans gave Matt Canada, and rightfully so, Matt Canada over the past few years was the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL, can make the case that Luke Getsy was number 2. And Justin Fields had to live in that offense with bad weapons and bad offensive line play. And again, eventually he got DJ Moore. And look, when he got DJ Moore last year, he had a series of really good games. Last year, he had games where he threw 4 touchdowns in consecutive appearances. That's more than you can say about any Steelers quarterback over the past few years. And so there's definitely something there with Justin Fields. It's not as if he's a horrible quarterback. And again, had the Bears not made the trade last year for the Panthers' first-round pick this year, when Carolina moved up to take Bryce Young, that was part of the DJ Moore trade. Their first-round pick, DJ Moore, to be able to move up to take Bryce Young. So had there not been a trade, we're probably not sitting here talking about Justin Fields being a Steelers quarterback, because the Bears, hypothetically in this situation, would have still drafted ninth, and they probably just stick with Justin Fields, get a new offensive coordinator. And I mean, look what Caleb Williams has at his disposal right now compared to what Justin Fields had. And Justin Fields still made a lot of really good things happen on the football field. He had 45 total touchdowns over the past 2 years. That's certainly not nothing. But had he had Shane Waldron as his offensive coordinator, had he been given Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen to go along with DJ Moore, I think that he could have made a lot more happen. And I expect, look, sometimes it takes a lot of wrong steps to make you go in the right direction. And look, the Bears, especially Ryan Poles and this regime who are still somewhat fresh, they aren't the regime that drafted Justin Fields. And so they're starting off kind of their own thing with Caleb Williams saying, look, we're not going to make the same mistakes that, the former GM and former head coach made when they drafted Justin Fields and didn't give him anything to work with. The Bears tried to last year by bringing in DJ Moore, but eventually, he still needed to have more. So regardless, I mean, Justin Fields can make a lot of things happen on a football field. There's no denying that. He's got 45 touchdowns over the past 2 years. He's one of the most dynamic dual threat quarterbacks in football. He's got a cannon for an arm. But are there things that he struggles with? Of course there are. Does he need to get better at processing? Yes. Yes, he does. Does he need to calm down and, just let things develop? Sure. Look, a lot of that can come back to the offensive line play that he's been stuck with, and also just his ability, knowing that he has the ability to make things happen, trying too hard sometimes. But when you have a talent like that, if it can be fine-tuned and, all of the wild stuff can be reeled in and harnessed, like, there's something there. Now, does that mean he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in football? No. Doesn't mean that it's impossible for him to be? Also, no. So, and again, former coach from Chicago during Justin Fields' time there said, when you watch him, watch his eyes. He tries to see the whole thing and doesn't see anything. His eyes are all over the place, and it's just really hard to watch. It's just bad football. That's a quote from Tyler Dunn's latest series on the Chicago Bears over at golongtd.com. And again, Tyler Dunn, friend of the show, friend of the channel, was just on my podcast, The Pump Fake, a couple weeks ago, talking the Buffalo Bills in the AAC East. So love Ty. He does tremendous work. You should absolutely go and read his work over at Go Long. Subscribe to Go Long. He's absolutely one of the best in the business today. So he's tremendous. So with Fields, I expect we're going to see him in some capacity this season. I don't think he's going to start the year off as a starter, but I think by mid-year he'll probably take over. We'll see what he looks like in the preseason. We'll see if there's a Justin Fields package of some sort during the regular season. But I think that the temptation is going to be too strong for Pittsburgh. With Fields just on the sideline, I feel like that's just going to be like, okay, we've got this dude here that we gave up nothing to get. Let's see what we've got with him. And if we like what we see, then we can talk about, working on an extension and seeing if he's our potential long-term answer. Now, again, Fields isn't a perfect quarterback. If he was, there's no such thing as a perfect quarterback. You got your guys that are close to it in different ways. Like Mahomes is probably the closest thing to it. Josh Allen, Burrow, like all the elite guys, like, they're close to it. But every player has some flaws, and Fields is that he's not great at processing. He hasn't really been great at processing. But again, can some of that be traced back to the bad offense that he was in, the bad offensive coordinator he was partnered with, the bad weapons he was given? Sure. And I do think with a better offense that fits him much better in an Arthur Smith scheme, that can kind of lean more into him being a dual threat guy and also lean into the fact that he's got a musket for an arm and take advantage of play action and launch it downfield. Like, this much better suits him than a bad Luke Getsy offense, which some Raiders quarterback is going to be tasked with running this year, whether it be Gardner Minshew, whether it be Aiden O'Connell. So I think that the situation is going to be much better for Justin Fields in Pittsburgh, and I think that is going to pay dividends for him when it comes to trying to get his career back on track. All right. So also from today, PFF named their most underrated players for every team, and Isaac Seumalo was named the Steelers' most underrated player. So a nice little nugget here from Zoltan Boudet of PFF said, Seumalo was part of arguably the NFL's best offensive line while in Philadelphia, and although he didn't get off to a good start in Pittsburgh, he soon proved why the Steelers signed him as a free agent in 2023. Excluding the first 2 weeks, he earned a 78.3 PFF overall grade, which ranked 6th among guards during that span. So Isaac Seumalo getting some love. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this year. As that offensive line has a few new faces. A few comments here. But is he better than Pickett? Yes, he's absolutely better than Pickett. Justin Fields is much better than Kenny Pickett. That's without question. That absolutely every day of the week and twice on Sunday, Justin Fields is worlds better than Kenny Pickett. Make no mistake about that. Yeah, Isaac Seumalo getting some love, which is nice to see. It's, one of the leaders of the team. Really one of the veterans of the team. I mean, he's one of the older guys on the team. Even then, he's not super old. I mean, this is a young team. And Seumalo, not a guy who says a ton, but a guy who, when he does speak, you listen. And he's probably going to have two new faces on either side of him this season, because Zach Frazier will be at center, and then Broderick Jones is going to be moving over to the left side more than likely. So, on both sides of his shoulders, Seumalo is seeing a different face than what he saw last year. Last year it was Dan Moore and Mason Cole in the middle, and now it's going to be Jones and Frazier on either side of him. Now look, we talked about the offensive line a lot this year, and for a good reason, because it was a giant weakness last year. Been a big weakness the last 2 years. Really, the last 3, now that you think about it. From 2021 to 23, I mean, the offensive line was just bad. And there's a lot of, the Kendrick Green stuff, Trey Turner sprinkled in there. Dan Moore wasn't very good. So they've gone through a lot of different combinations of guys where, one guy could have been okay. Like Chuks Okorafor was okay. Then they got Seumalo, who was good, and James Daniels, who was good, but still, you struggled at center. You struggled at left tackle. You benched Chuks Okorafor for disciplinary reasons while keeping in, you benched Chuks Okorafor for disciplinary reasons while keeping in Dan Moore, which didn't make any sort of sense. So I don't know. There's a lot of issues, especially last year with the offensive line. It was better in the run game, sure, but Mason Cole was horrible. Dan Moore, especially in the Cleveland game on the road, Dan Moore was bad in that game. I'm going to be the first to, point out any flaws that Kenny Pickett had, but in that game in particular, where I think it was the first drive where Myles Garrett just throws Dan Moore out of the way, and the Steelers get pinned at their own 1. That was a pretty big indication of, okay, Dan Moore just cannot get the job done. But the offensive line is going to be good. I have a lot of faith in Zach Frazier in the middle. A lot of confidence in Troy Fautanu wherever they line him up. It's more than likely going to be at right tackle. Broderick Jones moving to left. And then when the time comes, if James Daniels isn't brought back, they drafted Mason McCormick for that reason. Because, you got Samalo and Fields, or Samalo and James Daniels, who are going to be, figuring out that side of the ball. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the offensive line looks like. If you give me 1 minute, I think that my PlayStation might have just come back on. So let me take care of that real quick, and then I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, the offensive line is going to be awesome. With having Frazier in the set at center now is going to be great. And then Fatanu is going to be an absolute day one starter. Frazier is going to be an absolute day one starter. Dan Moore's going into the last year of his contract. They can keep him at swing tackle if they want to. But the offensive line is going to be a lot better. Steelers freak. Fields in 40 starts, 1 300-yard passing game, 12 200-yard passing games, and average 166 yards passing per game. He isn't better than Pickett. He is, though, because you got to take into account the running. Like, Justin Fields over the past 2 years has 45 combined touchdowns. He had more passing touchdowns last year than Kenny Pickett had in his career. He's absolutely better than Kenny Pickett. At 100% better than Kenny Pickett. There's no doubt. I think we're ready to move forward, kick some ass, hopefully. Offense will be 100% better. Absolutely. So, yeah, the quarterback situation got a lot better this offseason. That goes without saying. Pickett was bad. Trubisky was bad. Rudolph had a nice little stretch of games, but for anybody thinking that Mason Rudolph was all of a sudden the franchise answer, stop. We've seen plenty of quarterbacks come in, have nice stretches, get rewarded for it, and end up being, oh, crap. Remember Brock Osweiler? Like, Mason Rudolph, I like Mason Rudolph as a dude. Very happy, that he got to have that last month where he showed that he's a very capable backup quarterback and got paid by Tennessee for it. Very happy for him. He's not a franchise quarterback. So anybody who's like, oh, man, Mason Rudolph was done dirty. No, he wasn't. Frankly speaking, he was not. If he was the guy, he would have shown that in the time that he was there. I mean, he was in Pittsburgh for a long time, like 7 years. So, I like Mason Rudolph. I don't think that he was he's a franchise quarterback. I'm glad that he got paid good money by the Titans to be their backup to Will Levis, but he's not a franchise quarterback. So, again, love Mason Rudolph, but wish him all the best in Tennessee. But the Steelers quarterback room absolutely got better with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and now Kyle Allen as the third string. They also brought in John Reese Plumlee as an undrafted free agent. There could be some sort of quarterback competition. If John Reese Plumlee looks good in camp and preseason, maybe he becomes the third string quarterback. I don't know. His style of play certainly fits what Arthur Smith does offensively more than what Kyle Allen's does. So that might be something to keep an eye on in the preseason and in camp. X Concepts 1, good to see you. Mason was better than Mitch and Kenny long before they were Steelers. I like Mason Rudolph. When they signed Mitch Trubisky, like I was like, oh no, like nothing against Mitch, but like there was very clearly a ceiling there, and I think that that ceiling had been hit in the 2018 year where the Bears won the division. Super athletic, but Steelers never really took advantage of that. That's another guy that just was a victim of the offense. I think Mitch is better than what he showed in Pittsburgh. I think that he's going to be well suited being Josh Allen's backup again in Buffalo. I like Mitch. I like Mason. Those aren't franchise guys. They're nice backups to have, and I think Mitch will be a nice backup in Buffalo, and I think Mason will be a nice backup in Tennessee. Not franchise guys, though. So we'll see about that. Knock on Fields was slow delivery and processing 3 years later. The same, better runner, yes. Better at passing, no. Even then, he's a better passer than Pickett. Like, he's got a stronger arm than Pickett did. He had worse weapons than Pickett had. An equally bad offense. Like, Luke Getsy's offense was equally as bad. And again, the running ability, like, you have to factor all of that in. So there's no world where Fields is worse than Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett was really bad. And I'm certainly not upset that he's gone. And if you went back and watched the video that I made as soon as he was traded, you'll know that. Everyone called me dumb for saying Mason deserved a better shot after Ben. He was better than people claimed in 2019. Look, man, again, I don't want to spend a bunch of time talking about Mason Rudolph. But, he'll be a good backup. Under new coaching, Fields will perform much better. Yeah, I agree. I think that this system definitely fits him better. Fields had a horrible O-line. He was running for his life most of the time. Yeah, that was another thing. Like, especially in his rookie year, the offensive line was horrible. And I remember the outcry from Bears fans that year because they were starting Andy Dalton. And Bears fans are like, oh my goodness, put Justin Fields in. I'll give this to the Bears, though. They were smart for not putting him in right away because the offensive line was bad. And right or wrong, they were a lot more comfortable with Andy Dalton getting trotted out there and getting murdered every week because the offensive line was bad. And they didn't want to risk Justin Fields' health. When they did finally put him in, it was against the Browns. And I think he went 6 of 15 or something like that. Got the hell beat out of him all afternoon. And there was a reason why they weren't putting him in. It's because they didn't want him to get hurt and because the offensive line was bad. So I think that they were kind of pressured into doing it sooner than they would have liked. Because, the offensive line was bad. They didn't have any weapons at that time. And I think it did hinder him a little bit. And again, last year, yes, he had DJ Moore, and he showed improvement with DJ Moore. He had 2 games back-to-back where he threw 4 touchdowns and looked like, the dude that they wanted him to be when they took him 11th overall, when they traded up to take him 11th overall. So there's definitely been flashes, but and a bad offense under Luke Getsy and with no weapons outside of DJ Moore, like, he was asked to do a lot. And I think that in an Arthur Smith offense that better suits what he does, that will be, I'm excited to see what he does. I think that he'll be much better suited to and much better taken care of this year. With the new offense, better offensive line, better weapons, and whatnot all around him. I'm going to take this moment to shout out Justin Weimer, who became a Pump Fake Plus member over the weekend. So thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. So again, he'll be given all the exclusive stuff in terms of when we get media on, players on. We'll be able to submit questions and have them asked to the media and players. So if you want to become a Pump Fake Plus member, it's $2.99 a month. The cheapest one that I can make it. So appreciate Justin for doing so. Let me read. X Concept says, hold on, I got something in my eye. Got eyelash in there or something. Might be good. Okay, I think we're chilling. Okay. Fields fumbles scare me, but the Bears offense was bad and he's very young. Hopefully Smith, Sullivan, and Tomlin can help him. Well, and the thing with the fumbles, man, like, he runs a lot more than the average quarterback, so naturally he's going to fumble a little bit more than the average quarterback. Like, the fumbles don't necessarily worry me. Are they great? No. But, like, if you got a guy who's running much more, like, I expect Justin Fields to have more fumbles than, a guy who just stands in the pocket all game and doesn't move around. So I'm not too worried about that. And again, the number is high, but his number of rushes is also high. So I'm not too freaked out about that. Want to be wrong, but coaching can't fix Fields' processing or vision issues, which is baffling since he maxed out on the QB test at 130. I mean, they can. That's what good coaching does, is to help you see things better and help you understand how to see things better, and understand where certain reads are going to be, where certain guys are going to be in certain looks. I think he'll be fine. Again, do I think that he's going to all of a sudden become a top 5 quarterback? No. But can he be a middle of the pack quarterback? Yeah. A middle of the pack quarterback with a lot of athletic upside. Like if he ends up being like, I don't know, what Kyler Murray was the last year that he was healthy, like that's a big win. I like Kyler Murray, but he hasn't done a whole hell of a lot since he's been in the league. And again, not necessarily all on him. He was under a bad head coach with Cliff Kingsbury. I think that Jonathan Gannon, I clowned the hire once he was hired, but last year, I mean, he did a good job with what he was given. We'll see what the offense looks like this year, especially now with Marvin Harrison Jr. being there. But yeah, I mean, Kyler Murray's another guy who was drafted number 1 overall. They've gone to the playoff once since he's been there. They were immediately eliminated. Kyler Murray's awesome, but he's another guy that hasn't been dealt that great a hand with the organization that he's been with. So a little bit of correlation there between those two. I think Murray's better than Fields, but, situations do matter. And, in looking at the situations, especially with Fields, where he wasn't given a whole lot. Bad offensive line, bad weapons, bad coaching. I mean, give a rookie off. Look at Bryce Young. He was just a turmoil all season long with Bryce Young, where Frank Reich was the play caller, and then somebody else was the play caller, and then Frank Reich took it back, and then Frank Reich got fired. And then a bunch of different things go round and round, a bunch of play callers. It was just too much for one guy to handle, and it wasn't fair to Bryce Young. And on top of that, he didn't have a lot of weapons. He had prehistoric Adam Thielen, who's the dude who played in Jacksonville for a little bit, Laviska Shenault. Miles Sanders was a complete non-factor. The offensive line was bad. Like situations like that matter. And whether you're Bryce Young, whether you're Justin Fields, like if you come into the league and you're given a hodgepodge of crap and expected to make chicken salad out of chicken, sometimes you just can't. So I think that Fields would be fine. And again, if you're just joining, you haven't read the article by Ty Dunn, which by the way you should on golongtd.com. Tyler Dunn's one of the very best in the business, was just on this channel a few weeks ago, joining me for the pump fake. Absolute one of the best writers in football today. He's doing a series on the Chicago Bears, and in one of his latest pieces, he spoke to one of Fields' former coaches in Chicago, who said, when you watch him, watch his eyes. He tries to see the whole thing and doesn't see anything. His eyes are all over the place, and it's just really hard to watch. It's just bad football. So that's what sparked this conversation about Fields. So when it comes to Fields, yes, there's obvious reasons why the Bears wanted to take Caleb Williams and move on from him. Sure. If there wasn't, then they wouldn't, then he'd still be in Chicago. And the vision and the processing has been one of the biggest, detractors of his game. And again, do I think that he's going to all of a sudden blossom into like a top 10 quarterback who's, elite? No. But can he be, the 15th best quarterback in football? Sure. Like a guy with that much athletic upside and that big of an arm, like it's hard. He has the upside of being that, simply because of all his physical tools. And yes, he has to get better at processing and has to get better at those types of things. Good coaching helps you get there. And I think in an Arthur Smith system that'll better fit his needs, he'll be able to have a better chance of getting there. So, wishing all the best for Justin Fields. Also wanted to point out that Isaac Smala was voted the Steelers' most underrated player by PFF. I'll read that little snippet of that article again, which was released. I want to say it was released either like yesterday or this morning. I can't quite remember when it was released, but PFF named the most underrated player from every NFL team. Samala was named the Steelers' most underrated player, and Zoltan Bude of PFF wrote, Samala was part of arguably the NFL's best offensive line while in Philadelphia. And although he did not get off to a good start in Pittsburgh, he soon proved why the Steelers signed him as a free agent in 2023. Excluding the first 2 weeks, he earned a 78.3 PFF overall grade, which ranked 6th among guards during that span. So Isaac Seumalo getting some love, going to have different faces on either side of him this year, with Zach Frazier being at center and Roger Jones likely moving from the right side to the left side to play next to Seumalo. Looking forward to seeing the offensive line looks like. The Steelers also signed cornerback Anthony Averett yesterday. We haven't talked about that yet, so that feels like an important thing to touch on, especially when we've talked about cornerback depth a lot this offseason since we started making this a daily show. A lot of people are like, oh man, are they going to maybe turn to Stephon Gilmore? What are they going to do at cornerback? I don't think that they're necessarily done. I think Anthony Averett was very much a depth signing. And he didn't play in the league last year. Last played in 2022 with the Las Vegas Raiders. Did he get hurt last year? Like, I'm not going to pretend to be an Anthony Averett encyclopedia. Like, was he hurt last year? Maybe that was something that happened to him why he didn't play last year. So let me go back to March of 2023. That sounds about right. Maybe not. Maybe December 2022. Maybe he got hurt. Probably should have looked more into this before the show, but needless to say, he did not play in 2023. Let me click on PFT's article. Usually they give a little bit better of a bio. Unrestricted free agency in 2022, 1-year deal from there. The 49ers signed him. Yeah, he was injured reserve. Okay, so spent last year on IR. So he last played for the Raiders in 2022, had 3 interceptions with the Ravens, and was it 2021? So former Raven, former Raider, depth signing at cornerback, if anything, which is fine. I don't think that they're necessarily done at the position. I still am leaning toward the Cam Sutton signing probably happens. And if that's the case, I mean, you look at that cornerback room then where you have Joey Porter, Dante Jackson, Cam Sutton as your nickel with Darius Rush, who can play nickel, Corey Trice, who might be able to play nickel. We'll see if they try him out there. And then Anthony Averett. There's worse that you can do at cornerback, sure. Is it great? No. Would I like to see them maybe bring in a Stephon Gilmore? Yeah. But you can do worse. And I think that bringing in Cam Sutton, I didn't mention Beanie Bishop there either. I think that having him at nickel too will be really good. We'll see if Corey Trice pans out to be what, a lot of people were really excited to see Corey Trice last year and he got hurt. But if he ends up being a good player that they can put on the outside, then that's great. So Averett, more or less a depth signing. Again, had 3 picks with the Ravens in 2021. Was the Raiders in 2022 and spent last year on injured reserve. And so we'll see what he can bring in camp, mini camp, all that type of stuff in the next coming months. But again, if anything, that's a depth signing at cornerback that the Steelers needed. I don't think that they're done at the position. Again, I think the Cam Sutton signing probably happens. It just makes sense. So I would expect that one to happen just personally. And if and when it does, we'll be here to talk about it. Small is for sure underrated. He had to carry Dan Moore and Mason Cole and still balled out. He did tremendous last year. He showed why he was a very important free agent acquisition. So I think having a competent center and a solid left tackle next to him will only make him better. So you can, focus more on taking care of his business rather than having to help Dan Moore and help Mason Cole. So I think he'll only continue to get better. If you have any more questions, comments that you want to drop in here in the final 5 minutes or so before we get out of here for the night. Again, NFL schedule release. So we'll talk about that for a minute. So we know some teams that the Steelers won't be playing week 1. The Browns and Cowboys are playing week 1. The Steelers play both of them. Obviously, they play Cleveland. They also are scheduled to play Dallas in 2024. So we know they aren't playing Dallas. The Ravens and Chiefs are playing week 1. So we know they aren't going to play Kansas City or Baltimore in week 1. And then Philadelphia and Green Bay are playing that Friday in Brazil. So we know they aren't playing Philadelphia week 1. So that leaves 9 teams remaining that the Steelers could potentially play. Let me pull up the entire list here, and maybe we can narrow down. So the 9 teams that remains is the Bengals, Giants, Commanders, Colts, Raiders, Broncos, Chargers, Falcons, Jets. Now, you could scratch off the home games there because the Pirates are home that week. And anytime the Pirates are home on week 1, the Steelers play away. The only reason that it was a miracle that they got 2 straight home games last year to open up the season, which was very rare. So they'll like 99.9% be on the road to start off. So they could have an away game against the Bengals. The Giants is a home game. The Commanders, I believe, is a away game. They play at the Colts. They play at the Raiders, at the Broncos, and then at Atlanta. So that leaves 6. And again, I did the mock schedule. We've talked about it for the past few weeks. I think they're going to open up against Denver. It just makes too much sense. The NFL loves those types of storylines where, we're kicking off the season with a potential revenge game. Russell Wilson going back to play Denver in his first game as a Steeler. It just makes too much sense to not do. So if they do that, it'll be, the 4:15 game on CBS, or it'll be in primetime because it's in Denver. They're not going to play a 1:00 game in Denver. So it's probably, my guess as to what it would be Steelers Broncos week 1, either 4:25 or Monday Night Football. I don't know if they do that for Sunday Night Football. Usually anymore in today's NFL, Sunday night gets the more prestigious games than Monday night does. They've given Monday night a little bit more prestige ever since Joe Buck and Troy Aikman took over, which is nice because I love both of them. So it's nice to see Monday Night Football get that shine back after just years of crap announced teams. But even then, like Sunday night still has like the more prestige around it anymore than Monday night does. So I don't think that one would be a Sunday night game. I think that Monday night might be the if it is in prime time, I think Monday night would probably be the one to pay attention to. And Sunday night is usually like either the Giants or the Cowboys play week 1 Sunday night. That's just how it seemed to have been for the past my entire lifetime. I feel like every Sunday night game in week 1, like 2022 was Bucks Cowboys. Last year, I'm pretty sure the Cowboys played Sunday night last year. It might have been against the Giants. Hell, I don't know. Can somebody look that up in the chat real quick? I'll get on it, see if anybody can beat me to it. It was like week 1, 2023. Like it's usually an AF or an NFC East team playing in Sunday night football to kick off the year. So I am looking it up though, because it is going to bother me if I don't know. Yeah. Oh yeah, because the Cowboys won 40-0 against the Giants. So yeah, I was right. Yeah. Cowboys won 40-0 to kick off last season against the Giants on Sunday Night Football. So it'll be Kansas City, Baltimore on Thursday night, which, by the way, for Steelers fans, like if the Steelers fans do draw the Broncos, that's a game that they should win. I think the Broncos are going to be one of the top 5 worst teams in football next year. So that's a game that they should win. And the Chiefs against the Ravens, Lamar Jackson's only ever beaten the Chiefs once in his career. Came back in 2021. Yeah, because remember it was that game where everybody freaked out because John Harbaugh was yelling from the sideline, "Hey, Lamar, you want to go for it?" And everybody like loved that, which is fine. So he hasn't beaten the Chiefs in 3 years, and he's only beaten them once. So if you're the Steelers, you're looking at that and saying, okay, well, if Kansas City beats Baltimore, we beat Denver. Hey, we can get out to an early jump over Baltimore in the division. And again, yes, it's only one game and it's only week 1, but hey, it's better to start off ahead of the curve rather than have to dig yourself out of an early hole, especially for a team like Pittsburgh where there's a lot of questions around the quarterback position. So, and every game in the NFL is important. So if you're not if you if you can get any sort of little advantage and take away any, anything good from every game, then you do it. And if Pittsburgh can start 1-0 and Baltimore's 0-1, even better. Especially if they do an early season matchup between Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Let's say that the Steelers play the Ravens week 2. You're Pittsburgh, and you can go up 2-0 on the Ravens, including a win over the Ravens. That is huge. Absolutely huge. And again, we'll know the complete order by Wednesday night. And we'll go over it all here once it's all out. So that'll probably be Thursday shows going over the entire Steelers schedule because it's all set to release officially Wednesday night at 8. We're going to get more leaks over the next 36 hours or so leading up to the official schedule release. And like I said, we've already got a few that have been confirmed. So it's an exciting week. This is, one of the more exciting weeks of the off season where the schedule is released. Okay, we're getting closer and closer by the day to football. So yeah, it's an exciting time. Very exciting time. Broncos, Saints, Giants, Commanders, Raiders, bottom 5 teams. I think that the Broncos, yes. The Raiders, yes. The Giants, yes. I think the Giants are going to have the number 1 overall pick. I think the Giants are going to be putrid. Saints are an interesting one. Yeah, I think the Saints could be bad. Commanders, yeah, I don't necessarily believe in Jaden Daniels. So I think that those are 5 really good shouts there as to teams who could be pretty bad this year. Yeah, I don't see anybody in the NFC West being that bad. I don't see anybody in the NFC North being that bad. NFC South, I mean, maybe Carolina again, but I think Carolina will be better. They're still going to be drafting in the top 10, but like they'll be, 8th or 9th. I think there will be progression. I don't think any NFC, well, Commanders maybe, and the Giants, but Cowboys and Eagles, I don't think that they'll be, they're definitely not going to be that bad. So I think that those are 5 good teams to throw in there. That'll be good. But, again, I'm excited to see what this what the schedule looks like. I'm excited, to have it all out, predict all the games. We'll be doing that for USA Today, so that'll be good stuff. I'll talk about it on here. I'll talk about the Steelers schedule on here. So just make sure you like, subscribing, doing all that YouTube stuff. Just get all the. I'm not gonna say what's that thing. I'll ring the bell. I don't like that. If you want to turn on my notifications, cool. But I'm never gonna be somebody who says I don't ever want to be that like generic dude on YouTube. Just like, what's up, guys? Make sure you click that like button and ring that bell. I'm not gonna do that. I'll throw it in there, say, do all the stuff, but I'm never gonna be, some fake ass YouTube voice talking about all that. Just weird. But I think this is a good place to wrap it up. We'll talk more tomorrow. By tomorrow, I would expect at least one Steelers leak. The day before the schedule releases. So I would expect at least one Steelers game to get leaked. We'll know at least one. That'll be my prediction. We'll know at least one. So we'll talk about it more tomorrow. Until then, appreciate everybody for tuning in. As always, make sure you are liking, subscribing, all the YouTube stuff. Very much appreciate it. And then we'll be back tomorrow to talk more Steelers on the Black and Gold Breakdown. I'll see you all then.